Number 9. Shaunna Littlewood. Shaunna Littlewood and her best friend Sarah Holden were inseparable for 17 years before they broke their bond one night in 2017. The pair had spent the evening drinking together in South Yorkshire, England, when they played a 50 Shades type of game. Littlewood tied 24-year-old Holden's wrists and ankles to a bedpost and left the room to grab a pop. But instead, she came back with a knife and stabbed her friend 18 times in the face, neck, chest, and legs. The attack left Miss Holden fighting for her life, but shockingly, she survived the brutal attack. She underwent a 14-hour life-saving operation and a tracheotomy. She spent 4 days on life support with a torn heart and a collapsed lung. The ordeal left Holden with horrifying scars that run all the way down from her chest to her navel. She told investigators that Littlewood had said, "Sorry, princess," while stabbing her, and recalled being in and out of consciousness, unable to scream because of the wounds in her neck. When she was done attacking her best friend, Littlewood allegedly sat down and started watching TV. Eventually, she called a relative and confessed to the horrifying act, and they called for help. Littlewood pled guilty to attempted murder and was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 7 years. Number 8. Jessica Collins. A divorced mother of 3 from Houston named Jessica Collins made headlines in 2018 when police arrested her for getting into a fist fight with a friend and biting off and swallowing a sizable chunk of the victim's nose. Prosecutors charged the 41-year-old with assault and bodily injury and released her on a $1,000 bond. Her alleged victim, who spoke to ABC Houston in the days following the incident under the alias Tatiana, said that the attack left her without a nose. Tatiana was afraid to leave her bedroom because it was the only place she felt safe. She told reporters she had gone out to a bar with the neighbors and Collins, who was staying with the neighbors temporarily. After leaving the bar, the trio went to Tatiana's home, where Collins reportedly began demanding more cigarettes and alcohol. Her behavior got out of control enough for Tatiana to tell her to leave the property, at which point Collins jumped on her, took her to the ground, and sank her teeth into the victim's nose. Tatiana remembered tasting blood and she tried to fight back, and then losing consciousness. She woke up in an ambulance while being rushed to the hospital, where she learned that she urgently needed surgery to fix the damage to her face. A crowdfunding campaign helped raise the funds for the procedure since Tatiana lacked health insurance. We don't yet know what the outcome for Collins will be. Number 7. Lauren Walsh. Nobody knows exactly why a woman named Lauren Walsh tried to kill her best friend, Kelsey Jellinek, last year in the Liverpool suburb of West Derby in England. Walsh reportedly accused Jellinek of killing her grandmother and stabbing the victim 18 times. Jellink's partner, Wesley Pemberton, walked in during the attack. Walsh turned on him and stabbed him 3 times. Police charged her with 2 counts of attempted murder, and the courts found her guilty in December. She received a life sentence for her crimes. The trial showed that Walsh had used Jellink's credit card at various home goods stores before stabbing her best friend. But this still doesn't explain exactly what was going on in Walsh's mind when she committed the horrifying act. Jellink and Pemberton told the court that they planned on selling their home where the stabbing took place because they kept finding blood spatter despite their repeated efforts to clean the house. They stayed with relatives in the crime's aftermath, but this, of course, wasn't a realistic long-term solution. With all the traumatic memories that the attack attached to their home, they decided that the only way for them to move on with their lives was to sell. The incident left the couple to cope not only with physical wounds, but with the emotional scars of Walsh's brutal betrayal. Number 6. Richard Smith. A young Chicago man named Richard Smith found himself on the wrong side of the law in 2016 when police accused him of fatally shooting his best friend, 21-year-old Otis Richmond. The alleged murder occurred at Smith's home in the Englewood neighborhood while the pair were playing video games with 2 other friends. Smith complained that his back hurt from sleeping on his gun and pulled out the semi-automatic weapon. He clicked in the magazine and pulled the trigger, firing a bullet into Richmond's abdomen. The group rushed Richmond to the hospital and dropped him off there, but it was unfortunately too late for the doctors to save him, and they pronounced him dead. A hospital security guard told police about the group that Richmond arrived with, and officers tracked them down. They found blood on Smith's clothing and in the car's back seat he was driving, which turned out to be Richmond's vehicle. Prosecutors charged Smith with first-degree murder. Witnesses said that Smith looked surprised when the shooting happened, and his lawyer argued it was entirely accidental. Even if that's the case, the incident is tragic, not only because it took one young man's life, but because it had serious consequences for another young man. Number 5. Denali Bremer and Darren Schillmiller. In one of the most bizarre friendships gone wrong to make headlines in recent years, a young man from Indiana named Darren Schillmiller allegedly posed as a millionaire and asked his friend, 18-year-old Denali Bremer, to kill someone. The strange request happened in 2019 when Schillmiller claimed to be a wealthy man named Tyler and offered Bremer $9 million to murder a developmentally disabled Alaska woman named Cynthia Hoffman. All he wanted in order to release the payout was some sort of proof, photos or video footage that the 19-year-old victim was dead. The fictional Tyler character and Bremer had been in a months-long online relationship by the time he had made the proposition. In the weeks leading up to Hoffman's death, the twisted pair entertained the idea of assaulting and murdering someone near Bremer's home in Alaska. Bremer agreed to carry out the gruesome deed and recruited some friends to help her, including 19-year-old Caleb Leyland, 16-year-old Caden McIntosh, and 2 other unnamed minors. The group agreed on how they would divide the payout and who would play what roles. They chose McIntosh to be the shooter, and the sick bunch targeted Bremer's best friend, Hoffman, as the victim. They took Hoffman on a hike one afternoon at Thunderbird Falls north of Anchorage, where they took her off the main trail, bound her, and shot her to death before shoving her into the river. Throughout the horrific crime, Bremer took photos and videos and sent them to Schillmiller. Then, Bremer contacted the victim's family, claiming that they dropped her off at a park. McIntosh was the first to be arrested for the crime, and Bremer reportedly confessed under pressure during police questioning just days later. Schillmiller also admitted to his role in the sickening scheme. At the last update, the accused pleaded not guilty to their roles in the murder, despite their reported confessions to taking part in it. Number 4. KEYANTA Gardner. Last year, a 23-year-old Cincinnati man named Bobby Farrell Jr. disappeared, sending his loved ones into a panic. Sadly, their worrying was justified. More than a week after he had vanished, police found Bobby dead with a single gunshot wound to the head. Police arrested his friend, 23-year-old KEYANTA Gardner, in connection with the shooting after he spent days helping the family search for the missing man. They accused Gardner of conspiring with another man, 23-year-old Christian Beasley, to murder Farrell. Gardner reportedly admitted to being involved in Bobby's death, and prosecutors charged him with aggravated murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and several other crimes. The prosecution released scarce details to the press about what the alleged plan to kill Bobby involved. Family members of the victim told press that Gardner told them that he had taken Bobby to a local business, and that he watched as Bobby got into someone else's car and drove away. Later that night, the family received texts from Bobby's number, claiming that he was with an ex-girlfriend. But when they asked her about it, she said that Bobby wasn't with her. The jury sentenced Gardner to life in prison without parole. Number 3. Jordan Jones. In late 2019, a 21-year-old Clark Atlanta University student named Alexis Crawford went missing. Police found her body a week later in DeKalb County Park. An autopsy determined that someone had strangled her to death. Suspicion soon fell on Crawford's roommate, 21-year-old Jordan Jones. Authorities struggled to establish a motive at first, but they felt they had sufficient evidence to charge Jones in connection with Crawford's death. They also arrested Jones's boyfriend, 21-year-old man Barron Brantley. The couple faced charges of felony murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and concealing a death, and Brantley faced the additional charge of aggravated sodomy. It soon came to light that Crawford had filed a sexual assault complaint against Brantley days before they murdered her. Brantley and Jones both admitted to the crimes prosecutors accused them of. The judge spared them the death penalty, and instead, they received life sentences. A spokesperson for Crawford's family described the sentence as bittersweet, noting that neither of the young woman's parents wanted the killers to receive the death penalty. Number 2. LaShawn Gamble. 26-year-old Tyshauna Morris was murdered in late February near an apartment complex in Cincinnati, Ohio. Police found her remains outside during the early morning hours after answering a call about an unresponsive person. Morris was dead from a single gunshot wound. They eventually charged her best friend, 28-year-old LaShawn Gamble, with murder and tampering with evidence. While Morris's family was relieved to see someone get arrested in connection with Tyshauna's death, it also shocked them to learn that the accused was a person she was closest to. Shortly after the tragedy, Gamble had gone on social media to express her alleged grief, the authenticity of which has now been called into question. The post soon disappeared from Gamble's page. Morris' sister, Trayana Jackson, told the local station Fox 19 that she was on the phone with Morris the day before the murder. Gamble walked in during the call, and the two women argued when the call was dropped. Shortly after that, Morris' location disappeared. Jackson assumed that her sister's phone was broken, or that she was busy dealing with the situation at hand, but that it wasn't anything super serious. She said she felt guilty for not taking any action to save Morris' life, but that she had never imagined her sister would end up dead. Morris' brother Trayvon offered some advice that the family had unfortunately learned through experience. Be careful who your friends are. Number 1. Armani Alexander. Armani Alexander and Tamia Benton were close for several years. For a while, they had spent every day after school together, according to Benton's mother, Evelyn Hopkins, who spoke with the Virginian Pilot. Alexander even called Evelyn Mom. But the pair eventually grew apart, and their differences led to a bitter social media and text messaging feud, and that unfortunately wasn't the end of things. The hostilities between Alexander and Benton resulted in a brutal street fight in 2020, during which Alexander stabbed her unarmed ex-best friend in the heart with a small pocket knife. Benton, who was 19 years old, died within minutes from her injuries. Police charged Alexander with murder, but she maintained her innocence, insisting that she stabbed Benton in self-defense. She took the stand in her own defense, saying that she knew Benton was hurt, but that she didn't think she was going to die. Unfortunately, she was wrong. Alexander also argued that she was doing what she felt she needed to do to protect herself, and that she didn't mean to kill Benton, and the jury agreed. After deliberating for just 90 minutes, they came back with a verdict of not guilty on all charges based on self-defense. For the first time in nearly 2 years, Alexander walked out of a court as a free woman. But Benton's death was tragic, and not only for her own family. Speaking with the Virginian Pilot, Alexander's uncle said that if Benton hadn't died, he believed the girls would have made up and repaired their friendship by now. Thanks for watching. Would you rather catch your best friend making out with your partner or go an entire year without socializing? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, and we will see you again soon.